I'm Paul Solomon, the chair, and we will start with roll call.
Commissioner Beach.
Present, and my apologies, my camera doesn't seem to be working today.
No problem. Commissioner Freeman.
I am president, and I apologize because my camera is working today.
Commissioner Harris.
I'm present.
Commissioner McPherson.
Good afternoon. I'm present.
Commissioner Norton.
I am here.
Commissioner Perosa.
Present.
Commissioner Harnden.
I am here. I'm here. Good afternoon.
Hi there. And Commissioner Lehman. He might not be with us quite yet. And Chair Solomon.
Here. And I want to start off by giving a warm welcome to Chief Harnden, who is the Albany Chief of Police and has recently joined the commission, as well as Commissioner Lehman, Mark Lehman, who is the chair of criminology and criminal justice at Portland State. And I don't think he's quite with us, but hopefully he'll be joining us soon. And we also have another new member, a non-voting member, Amy Miller from the Oregon Judicial Department. She unfortunately wasn't able to attend today, but she will be with us at the December meeting. All right. Our first item on the agenda is the illegal marijuana market enforcement grant. And I believe Rima is going to walk us through the new scenarios and funding formula as we had directed staff to come back with some new framework for approving those grants.
Chair Solomon,
yes.
While Rima is getting set up with that, did you want to open up for public comment? We don't have anyone.
Thank you.
We don't have anyone signed up, but
indeed. Okay. Is there anybody who would like to provide public comment today? All right. Hearing nothing from the audience, and given that we haven't had anybody sign up, I think we will move forward. Rima, you are up.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Rima Atung, and I'm the grant coordinator for the Illegal Marijuana Market Enforcement Grant Program. So today I'm going to be talking to you about the grant award decisions for the 2025-27 biennium for this program. I do want to just note that I continue to have difficulties with the audio on my computer. It was working earlier when I troubleshooted, but if it gets weird sounding or goes out, please let me know and I will try and quickly rectify it and jump back on.
Great. You sound clear as a bell right now. So
excellent. Glad to hear it. So our objectives today are slightly different based on the type of applicant we're discussing. For our law enforcement agency applicants, today's objective is for the commission to review the results of the staff analysis that Chair Solomon just mentioned and choose which formula to apply to calculate the applicant's adjusted final score, and then also to review some funding scenarios that incorporate that adjusted final score, discuss allocations, and approve awards for those applicants. For our CBO applicants, today's objective is for the commission to review the GRC recommendations and approve the awards for those applicants. So first, I know we talked about the marijuana grant during the October commission meeting, which feels like it was just yesterday practically. So I'm only going to provide a few key points as review today. I think most importantly, it's important to note that we received 13 applications requesting a total of about $22 million, and we have only about 12.4 available to award this biennium. Of those applicants, 10 were law enforcement agencies that represent 11 counties and 3 were community-based organizations. The legislative and commission priorities for this program are presented here based on consensus by the GRC in our meeting with them a few months ago and the commission's discussion at the last commission meeting, due to the limited funding available in comparison to what was requested, we're really going to be focusing on the legislative priorities for this grant program, and those are listed on the left of this slide here. So let's get into our law enforcement agency applications. So in the last commission meeting, those applications were reviewed by the commission, and the commission chose to return all applications back to CJC staff for further review with the following instructions: to adjust the score calculated for each application to incorporate a weighting for jurisdictions that experience high activity related to illegal marijuana cultivation. To accomplish this task, CJC staff reviewed the application scoring and what data we had available for applicants and came up with a formula that incorporated several different components. The first component of the formula is the legislative priority score. So this is the applicant's total score for that legislative priority section of the application. Honing in on that section kind of highlights which applicants best demonstrate all 5 legislative priorities. It aligns with the discussion and recommendations that the GRC made when they reviewed the applications, and also helps ground the formula in the applicant's performance. We wanted to ground the formula in that to try and maintain the competitive aspect of the decision-making process. So here for your reference are each applicant's scores for that legislative priority section. Any questions or comments so far? Right. So the second component of the formula is applicant data related to illegal marijuana activity. And before we get into what those components actually are, I want to provide a couple of definitions. So staff reviewed the language of the rules for this program, and there are various definitions that are provided in the rules for those priorities. Specifically for priority number 2, they provide this definition of large scale. So that's illegal marijuana cultivation or distribution operations relative to the applicant's community that involve large quantities of illegal marijuana of significant monetary value, operations that take place over large geographic areas, or any combination of those circumstances. So that's the definition and rules that we have. So we looked at the data that was available from those applicants, and the data that we identified as most speaking to that definition are total pounds of marijuana seized and the number of incidents that grantee that is a returning applicant provided. So I do want to provide a definition of an incident as well, since that can cover a number of different law enforcement activities. So for the purposes of this grant, an incident is any enforcement activity done by our law enforcement grantees, which could include, and is most commonly, serving a warrant to an illegal grow that has been under investigation, and that often involves arresting the perpetrators, dismantling and destroying the grow infrastructure, including buildings and whatever else is there, depending on the jurisdiction. Seizures of any illegal substances, weapons, money, and other related items found that may be retained for evidence or destroyed. It can also mean serving a warrant and dismantling a drug manufacturing operation. Commonly, butane hash oil labs are one that we see. And it could also include things like parcel interceptions, where a grantee is intercepting somebody sending a parcel full of marijuana, or it could be any other enforcement action associated with the illegal grow.
Rima,
And I
think Commissioner Freeman has a question.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Rima, and thank you for this definition. I think that's where sort of the challenge I'm having is it's the word any. I don't know how you somehow take the word any enforcement or, any, there's the word any's in several portions of this definition, and match that to large scale.
Yeah.
It seems like that, those two things aren't the same. So I appreciate you having that definition. Does that definition come out of statute somewhere, or is that just what you're working under?
That's what we're working under based on what is reported to us. And that's an excellent point. When we get to the next slide, we'll kind of look at two different options for how this component can be incorporated, what data can be incorporated based on what you folks think the most appropriate data is to include. So, and that might speak more to this issue that you're talking about. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. So as I just said, we have two options for how this formula can look and for how this data can be incorporated into it. Option A is to incorporate the total pounds of marijuana seized and the number of incidents as separate components into the formula. This was recommended by CJC staff. It uses two measures to define activity. It kind of balances jurisdictions that had higher number of investigation with those that had higher overall seizures. And it kind of aligns with some anecdotal evidence from grantees that indicate DTOs tend to change behavior over time, and in some areas have shifted to having more smaller but better hidden grows rather than fewer large grows. There's a second option, and that would be to incorporate this average seizures per incident as a single component in the formula. This is what was requested by commissioners. It uses one measure to define activity. It really highlights those jurisdictions with high average seizures per incidence and therefore might align with that definition of large scale more. And we did also want to note it may also incentivize grantees to focus on certain types of marijuana activity and exclude others. So those are the two options in front of you and just some considerations to think about as we move forward. So here is the data.
Commissioner Freeman, Rima, I think
Oh,
Commissioner
sure.
Freeman had.
Mr. Chair, I can wait to the end. That's fine. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So here is the data that we have available for each of the applicants and their counties. So the first column obviously is the applicant name. The second column is going to be pounds, total pounds seized. The third column is that.
What number are you on? Oh, you don't have that.
Hi, Jenna.
Sorry.
Can folks please mute? Thank you.
Yep, I sent her a bunch of emails just a few minutes ago. I don't know if she called you, but I've got it.
Anthony, thank you.
That third column shows the percentage that applicant's seizure amount is compared to the total of all seizures for all applicants. Then we have that same information for the number of incidents reported, their share of the total incidents, and then the average amount, the average pounds seized per incident, and then that applicant's share of the total average. So I don't know if you want to pause and look at that for a second. I also have some data limitations to note. So for one of our applicants, Clackamas County, there are some significant data limitations. Clackamas County is applying for implementation funds, so they are the only applicant in this group that do not have an active team dedicated to illegal marijuana enforcement. Additional data provided by them indicates, we had some data because they were able to do a small number of incidents, but there is additional data that shows that there could have been more incidents if they had a dedicated team. So as a result, Clackamas County isn't really comparable to the other applicant data presented here, and their number of incidents and total pounds seized would likely be higher than what is here. So I just wanted to note that as a data limitation. So would you like more time to digest this information, or should we move forward?
Unless folks have questions now, I think we should move forward. This was sent out in the packet, so, but if folks have questions, please feel free to raise your hand.
So again, we can incorporate this data into the formula in two different ways. Option A is to incorporate those as separate components. So this is what the formula would look like. It would be, the percentage of those legislative priority section points possible times the weight for that section, plus the percentage of total seizures, plus the weight for that section, or times the weight for that section, plus the percentage of total incidents or times the weight for that section, excuse me, to get that final adjusted score. Option B is very similar, except for it would replace those two separate measures with one single component. So it would just be the percentage of points for that priority section times the weight plus the percentage average Cs times the weight for the final adjusted score. For both of these options, staff recommended the weights be 50% for the legislative priority points section, and then either 50% combined or 50% total for the other components, the data components. I do want to note that we can, of course, turn those dials, so the weights could be changed based on your folks's determination.
Great.
And it looks, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Freeman. I think this is a good point for us to kind of weigh in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when you're saying the percentage of legislative priority, that's the scorecard on the application.
Yes.
So
For that section.
For that part of it. So all the scorecard on the application, I appreciate the work that staff does to go through and read all that, but it seems like it's relatively subjective. It's kind of hard. And I read through the applications, and I know you do this for a living, and I just did it to try to understand it better. But, I'm trying to figure out why, like, say, Lane County on their, one of their questions, program description was so low compared to others, and it read similar to the others. So I don't know how to quantify that. Like I say, I don't do it all the time, but if 50% of the score is going to be on, on what, what they do in their application, that seems like a lot of work you all have to do, and to be consistent across the board seems pretty difficult. So, but that's what that means, right? The percentage of legislative priority, is it the whole score or just what you score on legislative priority in the application?
It's the total points that they received for that section of the application, which had questions for each of the legislative priorities. And you're absolutely correct. It is difficult and can be subjective to score. So we have a process in place where we're looking for specific things in their answers, like how they actually, what their understanding of the priority is, how they actually incorporate the things that it takes to make that priority happen in the real world into their program description. We have multiple people scoring it, and particularly we discuss all of the scores, but particularly in places where the scores are different, we discuss it in detail with each other to see why each person scored it a specific way, to come up with a final score individually, and then we average that out. So we have a process in place to try and minimize those things that you mentioned.
Well, thank you. And like I say, I read through all of them, and I can't imagine trying to pick one over the other. So great job doing that. I just want to make sure we're not hung up on process versus actually performance, right? So that's my concern in all this. Do we want good grant applicants or people that can write good grants, or do we want people that can go out and stop this from happening in our communities? That's I just want to make sure we're finding that balance. So again, that's where we're trying to kind of wade through the actual work they're doing as described in the reporting versus, the application. So it's look like either way, either scenario, it's 50-50. So 50% is going to be how well they filled out the application, and 50% is going to be how well they did the work.
Yep, and we can turn those dials. If you think it's more appropriate to do 30% in that legislative priority section and 70% towards whichever formula you end up choosing, we can do that. I'd have to take some time and recalculate real quick because there was just a
Oh.
lot of information, so I didn't want to do a bunch of scenarios as well.
Yeah.
But we
So-
can make those changes.
No, and as a previous legislator, it'd be, not right for me to say we want less legislative priority. So I think there's a good balance there. But one of the challenge I have is, and again, there's something that you guys are reading into Deschutes County and the coast different than I'm reading with Klamath and Lane County. Lane County and Klamath, to me, feel like they should be number 4 and 5 in the list of priorities. But in your calculations, both scenarios, they come out further down the line. And there's something in that text and the way you're scoring that makes it different. That's all. So I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just, I'm kind of a numbers guy and look at data, but I'm obviously not as good at pulling the words out that you're finding in the applicants.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and-
I won't waste a bunch more time, but I know how hard this is, and I appreciate the extra work you did.
Thank you. And I appreciate that feedback. We're always looking to improve. We have a process in place. It's not perfect. We're looking for specific things when we do the scoring, but there's always room for improvement. So, taking that feedback is something we absolutely want. So at this point, we can either, vote which option to move forward with, or we can look at how the results differ. I'm happy with either of those pathways.
Right. Do
So-
folks have a preference? Go ahead.
Okay, my only concern is that we're measuring incidents the same across all the different agencies. And I like that definition except for the any. So, if a law enforcement agency, every time they run into somebody that's got a little bit of marijuana, they count that as an incident, versus this actual goal of doing large scale, organized grows. I just want to make sure we're measuring the same. And that, I don't know, maybe I see value in both because you do want the folks that are having, less grows that particular year to continue to do the work and look for it and make sure they don't become complacent and have it move back into their area. So I understand both of them, but I'd like to hear from the chair. He's been doing this longer than me, but it seems like we'd want to make sure our incident definition was sort of apples and apples across the applicants.
Can I just say that maybe I use the word any too liberally? They're not reporting like traffic or like picking up one individual person who has marijuana. These are incidents, law enforcement actions that are specific towards the purpose of this grant, but they could encompass a number of different enforcement activities.
Yeah, but like at the coast, if they're doing a total of 21 incidents, and their average, collection of either plants or pounds is, less than 69, there's no large scale there. So I'm curious how we're, counting all those as incidents when, the average of the top 5 average of the incidents is 2,500 pounds. And the average of those two, the Deschutes and the coast, is 86.5 pounds. It's something's different there. And that's just from the data. Again, I'm not on the ground doing the work, but clearly that data shows an incident in those two areas is different than an incident in the other 5. So I don't know what that is or how to describe it or define it, but I mean, that's a long ways off. It's the what doesn't look like with the others, right? I mean, there's something that doesn't look the same as the others. So if we're calling all those equal incidents, something's different.
So it seems to me that option B would maybe address some of what you're bringing up, where we focus more on the average weight and weighing that more heavily than including the number of incidents.
Or put a minimum, put a 500-pound minimum to qualify as an incident, or a 300-pound or something. It seems like there's got to be some definition if we're going to try to focus on large scale. But then again, I do see the value of you got to crack a lot of eggs to make a cake, right? I mean, they're out there doing that work, trying to find it, and I don't want that discounted either. So I'm not convinced. It just, again, when you look at the data, there's something different there about those two. And obviously they're good at writing the grant because they both scored very well on the legislative priority grant stuff too. So there's, they're doing something right there. And I don't want to discount the value of that. We have limited dollars. It'd be great if I have enough money to fund everything, but that's not what we have.
All right. Other commissioners have thoughts? So Rima, at this point, you're looking for us to make a determination about which of these two options to move forward with, or whether we want to rejigger the weighting altogether. Correct?
Yeah, we can move forward with an option, and there's some sample motion language here. It is your option at any point to rejigger the weights as you mentioned, or we can just continue with the presentation. I do have, the application of both option A and option B with some funding scenarios. So if you want to see how they actually look in terms of where applicants' final scores ranks in the funding scenarios are, we can move forward that way as well.
I actually think I would prefer for us to make a determination here before we start looking at how much individual counties are going to get.
Okay.
But I'm open if people see this differently and want to move a different direction.
I agree.
All
I
right.
think this Commissioner Harris, I think we
Yep.
should check. I think we should discuss the formula before seeing how it all plays out. That could influence the discussion.
Great. All right. Do folks have a preference for option? I mean, we can vote on these to see where we line up with option A or B, or if people want to kind of voice their thoughts now. All right, let's go ahead and Commissioner Freeman, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I could argue either side of this,
Mhm.
depending on the year and, what's going on and how it affects communities. But option B seems to me like it at least tries to sort of level the difference between the number of incidents that you're doing and the pounds. And that way, those counties that are, those areas that are doing a bunch of incidents and have little, small amount of pounds, it still sort of blends those together, finds
Yeah.
that balance.
And that's how I'm inclined to vote. So maybe let's just do this. Do folks have an aversion to going with option B?
Chair, this is Commissioner Beach.
Mhm.
I also agree that
Okay.
option B is the
Great.
best direction.
All right. Hearing no other thoughts opposed to option B, let's go ahead and move forward with option B, Rima, and let's go ahead and take a look at the how that plays out with the funding formula.
Okay, so option B. So here is what those final scores look like, with the highest scoring at the top, lowest scoring at the bottom, with those adjusted scores and the 50-50 weight.
Mhm.
So if folks want to take a second to look at that. Any comments or questions on those score calculations or the rank order? No? Okay. Just gonna, so before we get into, the next step is to apply that rank order to some funding scenarios. So before we get into the funding scenarios, I know I included this in the memo, but just because we always get questions about it, I wanted to very quickly go through our staff recommended baseline budget reductions. You know, staff go through a process once we get the budgets just to make sure everything in them is appropriate and allowable. So our staff recommended budget reductions take out some of those unallowable items. They right size the project period down. On the second slide here, I just wanted to note, especially since so many applicants are returning applicants, we actually did an analysis of how much funds they had left to the end of the grant period and scaled everyone down to 20 months, since there was an overlap between the new grant period and the old grant period, and almost everyone still had funding. So that's incorporated into those staff recommended budget reductions. We also adjusted per diems, reduced the number of people attending trainings to 2, and then adjusted the administrative rate. And that took off in total about $1 million from the requested amounts. So just for your information, you know, everything moving forward is going to be based on those staff recommended amounts, unless you folks don't agree with moving forward that way.
Great.
So this shows the requested funds and the adjusted request amount for each applicant. I know we have short time, so I'm just going to jump into for option B, that formula. There's 2 funding scenarios that we wanted to discuss. There's also a third, which is what the GRC recommended, which would be an even reduction across the board, across all applicants, and giving them some funds. So what they had recommended, you know, just for a reminder for you all, is to do a 35.5% reduction for everyone, but give them, you know, all awards. So the 2 scenarios that we're presenting here are just to do targeted funding to high activity areas, and that's shown in this middle column labeled scenario 1. And basically we would award out the adjusted request amount, the full adjusted request amount, until we run out of funds, and do a partial award to the last applicant, the last highest ranked applicant that the funds stretch to, basically. So that would be Klamath County would get a partial award. The second scenario is to do a scaled funding based on the applicant rank. So that is shown in scenario 2, that second to right column, with the percentage that could be scaled at in that last column. I feel like I did not explain that very well. I apologize. So please let me know if you have questions.
I think you did a decent job. If folks have questions about the different scenarios or need more clarity. All right. Go ahead, Commissioner Freeman.
Ready for a motion?
Yes.
I'd move to adopt scenario number 2.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Freeman. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Commissioner Perosa.
All right. We have a motion made by Commissioner Freeman, seconded by Commissioner Perosa. We did
Sorry,
not
we're gonna have to do the abstain thing.
Yeah, well, actually, we did not have staff come up with abstention language, in part because with these law enforcement grants, there's less likelihood that people have a direct conflict. So I guess what I'd like folks to do is speak up now if you feel you need to abstain on this particular grant. Okay, not hearing any abstention.
I'm on the board of directors for one of the organizations.
Okay.
And I know you wrote Douglas County as the applicant, but it's really an interagency. So.
Okay, so let's.
I will abstain. Yeah.
Okay, so let's.
Probably should have made them up.
Yeah. Let's do these in 2 slates. Let's do, actually, why don't you, if you don't mind reframing the motion, Commissioner Freeman, to include all of the counties except for Douglas, and then we can do Douglas separately.
And Chair, this is Commissioner Perosa again. I feel like I should probably abstain from Lane County as well.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Freeman, if you want to restate a motion that doesn't include Douglas County and Lane County, we can look for a different second.
And I will move to
Or-
approve scenario number 2 without Douglas and Lane County at this time.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
Commissioner Beach, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion made by Commissioner Freeman, seconded by Commissioner Beach. Jenny, would you take roll, please?
Sure. And just as a reminder, I will call our 2 new commissioners during the votes, but because they likely have not had time to prepare, you are welcome to abstain from the voting. So we'll start with Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
Chair Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harnden,
Abstain.
and Commissioner Lehman.
I'll abstain.
And vote passes.
Okay, great. Is there someone who would be willing to make a motion to approve the scenario 2 funding for Douglas County?
Commissioner Beach, so moved.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Perosa, I'll second.
Right, we have a motion made by Commissioner Beach, seconded by Commissioner Perosa. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Abstain.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
Chair Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harnden,
Abstain.
and Commissioner Lehman.
I'll abstain.
All
Passes.
right, great. And then finally, if someone would be willing to make a motion for scenario 2 funding for Lane County.
This is Freeman. I will do that.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Beach, I'll second.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Freeman, seconded by Commissioner Beach. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
I abstain.
Chair Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harnden,
Abstain.
and Commissioner Lehman.
Abstain.
All right. Anything else, Rima?
Yes, so we do have the CBO
Oh, the
applicants
CBOs.
left to
Yep,
discuss.
yep, absolutely. Yep. Let's do those.
So staff are recommending that the commission adhere to the grant review committee recommendations for this group for a number of reasons. We did not get specific instructions for how to adjust the scoring for those applicants. They don't have comparable data to calculate activity in the same way. And also the service areas are very different. So it's difficult to draw conclusions and comparisons between them. So just a reminder, here's the application scores for those 3 applicants for that legislative priority section in the top table, and then the recommended awards for that the GRC gave us previously are in that far right column in the second table. And what they recommended was a 35.5513% reduction across the board for all 3 applicants.
All right. Any discussion? We kind of went over this in the last meeting and there wasn't any additional feedback. So any discussion? All right, are you ready for motion, Rima?
Yep.
Great. Looks like we have some motion language. Is someone willing to make the motion to approve the 2025-27 IMMEGP awards to CBO applicants shown in the recommended awards funding table?
Also move, this is Commissioner Harris.
Is there a second?
I'll second Commissioner Beach.
Great. Motion made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Beach. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris, Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
Chair Solomon,
But we
Yes.
ended up getting his phone number and.
Commissioner
getting a
Herndon?
search warrant, so they-
and Commissioner Lehman.
I'll abstain.
Did you get all of those responses, Jenny?
The
I don't
only one
think
I
you got
didn't,
mine.
yeah, was
Yeah.
Sorry.
Commissioner Harris.
Yes, sorry, it cut out. I couldn't hear you. Yeah, yes, for me.
All right,
Okay.
we're good. Thank you.
All right. Well,
Great, thank you guys. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Rima, for all your extra work. Really appreciate it, and thank you.
Yep.
All right. Next up on the agenda, I believe we've got the Oregon Retail Theft Grant Awards, and Shelby.
Hello, just one moment and I will upload my presentation. Okay. All right, so yes, good afternoon, Chair Solomon and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Shelby Grauer and I'm the grant coordinator for the Organized Retail Theft Grant Program. And I'm here today to present the final applications for the 2025-2027 grant program. So a quick look at our objectives. So first is to review the final applications, and then second is to determine whether to approve staff funding recommendation. As a quick reminder to the purpose of this grant program, it is to financially assist agencies with the costs associated with addressing and prosecuting organized retail theft, and it may be used for the purchase of equipment. There's a total of $4,715,044 available. And then a quick look back at what was approved at the October Commission meeting. So the Commission approved the reduction methodology that's shown on the right side of the screen. This includes removing unallowable expenses, right-sizing requests to include reducing personnel requests to 23 months to match that project period length, reducing time for new positions to allow time for them to hire for those positions, reducing equipment to match the percentage of time that the applicant has identified that it would be dedicated to combating organized retail theft specifically, and then removing personnel that they've labeled as an existing position but not currently CJC funded if an explanation was not provided that outlines why grant funding is now required for this position or requested for this position. And then capping training and travel at $12,000 per applicant, prioritizing programs or equipment to support programs over those that requested equipment only, and then finally to fund applicants based on their final score. The Commission also chose not to create a set aside for the Oregon Department of Justice at that time. So this means that they'll continue to move through the grant process as a non-competitive applicant, but that they are subject to this approved reduction methodology. So moving on to that final application that opened after the October Commission meeting, applicants were provided with applicant-specific feedback if it applied to them, as well as further instructions on how to complete that final application. It was a two-part application, with the first being an opportunity for applicants to outline how they meet any of the application requirements that they were identified as not meeting in the preliminary application. And then the second process was required for all applicants to update their budget projection sheet to include a narrative that connected each request to the line item that they were requesting. They were asked to provide an estimated percentage of time that each item is focused on combating organized retail theft specifically. And then again, provide an explanation for personnel that they titled as existing position, not currently CJC funded. And then those applications were due on November 12th, no later than 5 p.m. So we initially received 39 preliminary applications, but there were 3 applicants that did not submit a final application, which brought our total final applicants to 36 with a final funding request of just over $12.5 million. And this map on the right shows the distribution of applicants across the state with black dots and those blue highlighted counties representing applicants that submitted that final application. So then this moves us into the staff review process. So each application was reviewed as you see here on the slide. So we reviewed each applicant feedback response to make sure that they did in fact meet those application requirements. We then scored all the applicants using their application score sheet, which again focused on their adherence to the program priorities and the requirements. And then we applied steps 1 through 3 of the approved reduction methodology to determine what we'll now call the adjusted request amount as we move forward. And then just to show you where we fell at that point. So then the total adjusted request after these first 3 reduction methodologies were applied came in at just over $8.5 million. So moving on to the next steps, this will show you how the applicant will continue to narrow as we move through the approved reduction methodology. We started with the 36 submitted final applications, and all 36 of the applications demonstrated how they met the application requirements, so they continued on. Of those 36, 38% of them did not provide an estimated time that their request would be focused on organized retail theft specifically. So this means that they didn't provide a percentage of time for any of their requests. So we were unable to determine exactly the percent of time that it would be focused on combating organized retail theft. So their request was removed. So this brought us to 26 applicants. We then continued to move through the approved reduction methodology and prioritize applicants who requested funding for programmatic requests over equipment only. So this included applicants who identified having staff or requested to fund staff whose purpose would be focused on combating organized retail theft. And this brought us to a total of 20 applicants who met step 1 through 4 of the approved reduction methodology. And then that brings us on to step 5, which was funding based on the final score of their application. So the chart on the left here shows those 20 applicants who met all of the reduction methodology ranked from highest score to lowest score. The average score of the program was 77%, and so staff reviewed to see what it was that those applicants that scored higher were meeting, and we noticed that those who scored higher provided a more thorough description of the organized retail theft problem that they were experiencing within their jurisdiction, and they were more thorough with their description of their ability to address this issue as a whole. So in the next 2 slides, I'll break down the funding scenarios and the staff recommendation, but I did want to pause for just a moment to explain DOJ's request. So their request has been adjusted based on that approved reduction methodology as we outlined before. So the total you see there of the just over $574,000 is their adjusted amount. But they are a non-competitive applicant, so they would not receive further reductions that would be shown in scenario 2 through 4 on the following slide. But I just wanted to take a moment to highlight that before we moved forward. So staff have prepared 4 funding scenarios for you to look at for today. It's important to note that all of the funding scenarios do prioritize funding programmatic requests rather than equipment only requests, and that they're focused on funding applicants based on their final score, which aligns with those last steps of the approved reduction methodology. So scenario 1 would fund applicants starting at the highest scoring applicant and working through to the lowest scoring applicant at 100% of their adjusted request. So we would fund until all of the available funds had been allocated, which would allow us to fund a total of 8 applicants in full and then award 1 partial award. Scenario 2 would fund the top scoring applicants at 80% of their adjusted requests and would allow us to fund 9 applicants. Scenario 3, we would fund 70% of their adjusted requests, which would allow us to fund 10 applicants. And then scenario 4 is a tiered funding based on their final score. meaning that applicants that scored 90% and above would receive 90% of their adjusted request. Applicants that scored 85 to 89% would receive 75% of their adjusted request. And then applicants that scored 80 to 84% would receive 50% of their adjusted request. And that would allow us to fund 10 applicants. So this chart here that you see is the same numbers that was presented to you in the updated memo, that funding scenario that was available in the Google Drive. But I want to just pause for a moment to show you what each of those scenarios looks like with the numbers put in. I do have the following slide of the staff recommendation once you're ready.
And folks should have received a link to this chart previously.
Yes. I'm happy to move on if you would like, Chair Sullivan.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think great. Thank you.
Great. So the staff recommendation is to move forward with scenario 1. So again, this would be funding the top scoring applicants at 100% of their adjusted requests until all of the funds are allocated. It would fund a total of 8 applicants in full, with 1 receiving a partial award, and again would allocate all of the funds that are available. The chart on the right here, or this map on the right, shows the arrest data versus the applicants that would then be funded. So we wanted to compare the two. So the yellow shows applicants that would be funded, while the blue dots show arrests that have occurred. So option 1 does distribute funds in areas that are impacted by organized retail theft. And while it does not fund all applicants, as the request was substantially more than the available funds, applicants who are not funded do still have the option of seeking assistance from DOJ's retail theft unit. So I'm happy to pause if there are any questions at this point or any discussion.
So Shelby, I'm just curious, you went with option 1 because of kind of this heat map analysis that you did that showed that that's where more of the activity was occurring?
So option 1 aligned with the reduction methodology that was approved, was the closest in alignment with that, and then when overlaid across the activity that was happening, we were able to see that it was focusing on areas that are also impacted. So it was a combination of the two.
Okay. Let me look at the chart again. All right, any questions from commissioners, thoughts? Right, we have a staff recommendation to go with scenario 1. Are you ready now for motion language, Shelby? If there's no further discussion?
Yes. I do have a
Okay.
slide prepared if that's helpful, or I'm happy to go back to show that chart if there are those that would like to abstain.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to share a thought, and I've publicly said previously that I have concerns about the license plate reader technology. And I know that Senate Judiciary met last week to discuss this very issue, and that we will be likely seeing some legislation in the future to address the uses of this technology. And I understand that under kind of the current grant guidelines that this is an allowable use, and that many of the applicants that were just asking for license plate reader technology under the current scenario that we're looking at wouldn't be funded. But I still think that there are some that would be funded, and I would really love for staff to consider, the future of this grant and evaluate the uses of this technology so that we have more information moving forward about best practices, how this technology is being utilized. So I just kind of want to put that on the record as a request to staff.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Solomon.
All right. Let's go ahead and move forward to the motion language.
Okay. So this is what I have as far as motion language, but again, I'm happy to go back to that slide that outlines the applicants specifically that would be funded,
Mhm.
for those that would like to abstain. Would that be a more helpful slide than this slide?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so if we go with scenario 1, which is what staff's recommending, we're looking at DOJ, Washington County, Clackamas County, Central Oregon, Eugene Police Department, Multnomah County, DA's office, Yamhill County, Lincoln City, and PPB. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Is there anybody on the commission that would abstain from this vote?
Chair Solomon,
Yeah.
this is Commissioner Beach. I would like to abstain from the vote with regard to Yamhill.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to the motion language. Is there someone that would be willing to? Oh, so we're starting with OJD first.
Correct. Yes, please, with DOJ.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Or DOJ. Or yeah. Is there someone who would be willing to make a motion to approve the staff recommendation for the Oregon Department of Justice in the amount of $574,179?
This is Freeman. I'm happy to make that motion.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Beach, yes, I'll second.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Freeman, seconded by Commissioner Beach. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
Chair Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harnden,
Abstain.
and Commissioner Lehman.
Abstain.
All right. You have another slide for motion language for the remainder of the applicants?
I do have just the second sentence that's there, to approve the staff recommendation as shown in scenario 1.
Okay. Is someone willing to approve the staff recommendation as shown in scenario 1, excluding Yamhill County?
This is Freeman. I'm happy to make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Commissioner Harris.
All right. Second by Commissioner, or motion made by Commissioner Freeman, seconded by Commissioner Harris. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon, or sorry,
Yes.
Chair Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harnden,
Abstain.
and Commissioner Lehman.
Abstain.
All right. Can you bring back up the other slide so I can see the amount for Yamhill County?
Absolutely.
Is there someone willing to make a motion to approve funding for the Oregon Retail Theft Grant for Yamhill County in the amount of $67,486?
This is Freeman. I'm happy to make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second Commissioner Harris.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Freeman, seconded by Commissioner Harris. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Abstain.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
Chair Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harnden,
Abstain.
and Commissioner Lehman.
Abstain.
All right. Anything else, Shelby?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up is the 2025-27 JMOOD grant award decisions. And I believe, Rachel, you're going to lead us through that conversation.
Yes, somebody could give me a thumbs up when this loads. I would appreciate it.
You got it.
Perfect. All right. Good afternoon, Chair Solomon, Commissioners. I'm Rachel MacArthur. I'm staff here at CJC. And today I'm going to be asking you all to review and approve funding recommendations for the JMOOD grant program. Just a little bit of background. This is the second cycle of this grant program. We did have a little over $10 million in available funds this time. And then also, which I'll get into in just a second, the eligible recipients include the cities and counties as well, that operate a tribal or operate a correctional facility. And then we also have federally recognized tribes in Oregon that operate a tribal correctional facility. And just a reminder, we did not have any tribal facilities that asked for funding. And so we did not have a set aside for them. So all of the funding went to the cities and counties. And then a little bit on the eligibility for applicants. This was amended in 2025. And so this expanded the eligibility language. If you all remember, in August of this year, we presented this particular language to you all to expand the OARs, and so that there were transition centers that would be eligible for funds. We did file temporary rules to expand this eligibility so that they could apply during this grant cycle. And we did have two transition centers that took advantage of this expansion and didn't apply for funds, which you'll see in a little bit. These are the application requirements that each applicant had to meet. I do just want to note in this that, and I'll get into kind of the 2025 solicitation and how many applicants, but with this requirement, if it was based on a formula, and any county or city jail that didn't apply, the OAR that refers to allocated funds, we did not go back and adjust their allocation. And so it did stay the same that was in the funding table that you all approved. We didn't have to adjust any of that. So they just applied, they had a budget request, it remained the same. And any unallocated funds, we'll have that discussion at a later time. They did have a list of eligible expenses. This is very explicit in the bill. And so when staff did their analysis and presented it to the GAC, we really just wanted to focus on whether or not the requests fit the program, like a MOOD program. And so a lot of the conversation with the GAC revolved around that. Specifically, housing and transportation wanted to make sure that those particular requests fit within a MOOD program, as well as peer supports. So those were the two requests that we got this cycle that we did not get last time. So we had those conversations with the GAC. The GAC felt like they were appropriate requests, and so they were included in the overall recommendation. So for this solicitation, we had 23 correctional facilities that applied for funding. Last time we had 21, and we ended up with 19 that did get funding for the cycle. And so we do have more applicants this time. We had a little over 7 million total funds that were requested, and most of the returning and even newer applicants have established programs, their existing programs, and they were essentially just asking for funds to expand or extend services. Particularly, a lot of them focused on that when they are released from custody aspect, expanding that transitional services. And most of the requests, this was very similar to last time as well. They were in personnel. Supplies, meaning medication. Most of the requests focused on medication in particular, and direct services, which is the treatment aspect of their program. And so these were the funding recommendations from the GAC. I have this split up into two different slides just because I couldn't fit them all. So I'll just pause here just so that you all can review these. The Clackamas County TC, just as a reminder, that is the transition center, which met the new eligibility requirements that were expanded this year. And then here are the rest of the applicants with the GAC recommended funding. And again, Washington County also had a transition center that was identified and applied for funding. So that's the Washington County TC in there. Also want to note Umatilla County and Grant County were a combined applicant, and so they combined their funds for use across both of their jails. And then Norcor also provides services for a number of counties in Oregon. So, any questions on these funding recommendations? Chair Solomon, I have potential motion language on the next slide. I can either move to that. I don't have any language again with any abstentions, and so I can toggle back and forth between these two tables if needed, if you're ready for that particular slide.
Yeah, and I'll just make a couple of comments about this grant. First is I'm glad to see that we have more counties applying. It's pretty rare that we have more funds available than applicant requests. And I know this grant was originally intended to be a bridge to Medicaid funding, but it appears to be a bridge to nowhere since it looks like we're not moving forward with the 1115 Medicaid waiver in Oregon, which I'm personally disappointed about. But I think it really means that we are going to have to rely on the legislature to continue to fund this program to keep these programs in jails up and running. So glad that we got funding this biennium. Glad to see we have more applicants. And as I said, pretty rare that we have more money available than actual requests. So yes, let's move forward. Are there any folks who are going to abstain on this grant?
Chair Solomon, Commissioner Beach, I would prefer to abstain from Yamhill if
Okay.
possible.
Great. Anyone else? Okay. Is there someone really willing to make a motion to approve the Grant Review Committee's recommended funding for the 2025-27 jail-based medications for opioid use disorder grant program, with the exception of Yamhill County?
So moved. Commissioner Beach?
All right. Is there a second?
This is Freeman, I'll second.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Beach, seconded by Commissioner Freeman. Jenny, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
Chair Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Herndon,
Abstain.
and Commissioner Lehman.
Abstain.
All right. Rachel, would you pull back up the slide with Yamhill County? Great. Is there someone willing to make a motion to approve Yamhill County's JMOOD funding for 2025-27 in the amount of $255,958?
This is Freeman, I'm happy to do that.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second for Commissioner Perosa.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Freeman, seconded by Commissioner Perosa. Jenny, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beach,
Abstain?
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
Chair Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harnden,
Abstain.
and Commissioner Lehman.
Abstain.
Right. Anything else, Rachel, on this grant?
That's all I got. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Next up, I think we're going to hear from Gerardo about a couple of JAG grant programs and solicitations. So, Gerardo.
So, thank you, Chair Paul and members of the commission. Give me 1 second to pull up my slides.
Mhm.
Okay, please let me know if you can see my presentation.
We can.
All right, well, hello, everyone. Thank you, Chair Paul and members of the commission. For the record, my name is Gerardo Aviles Leon. I'm the Budget and Finance Manager here at CJC and also Supervisor of Federal Grants. And today I am presenting a request from the Oregon Judicial Department for FY23 Edward Byrd JAG funds. I just want to start off with a little bit of a housekeeping. There's tons of acronyms in the federal grant land, so these are some key ones that will just be coming up today with JAG, which is the Edward Byrd Memorial Justice Assistance Grants, BJA, which is the Bureau of Justice Assistance, which is the awarding agency for this specific grant, SAA, which is State Administering Agency, and FY, in this case, stands for the Federal Fiscal Award Year. Start off with some background overview. I just want to mention that CJC is the designated SAA for JAG funds for the state of Oregon. The specific funding source from this request is the FY23 JAG, and this is a modification of the JAG treatment court activity that was outlined in our FY23 JAG application. And just a little bit kind of a high level overview of what is being requested. OJD has submitted a proposal for funding to work with the subject matter experts to coordinate and manage updates to Oregon Specialty Court standards and complete Oregon Specialty Court standards and complete additional activities to support local implementation and statewide monitoring of the updated standards. Just additional background for this specific FY23 award, the project period is from October 1st, 2022 to September 30th, 2026. The funds would also be used to pay for travel and participation support expenses for treatment court team members to attend related training events. Deliverables would be completed by September 30, 2026. This request seeks to further align treatment court operations with research-based models, as well as support implementation of legislation related to treatment courts, which are outlined on this slide. As you can see, we had three. There's a lot of activity this long session for treatment courts, and back in 2013 was the original development of the Oregon treatment court standards. So some of these objectives, the work needing to be completed is sizable and requires subject matter expertise. Thus, OJD proposes working with a contractor to collaborate with OJD. And here I have outlines 4 objectives at which OJD will be working on. One is update the Oregon Specialty Court standards, identify data elements to develop methodology to monitor adherence to the updated Oregon Treatment Court standards and program outcomes, complete a limited scope treatment court program cost study, and provide training to support implementation of the updated Oregon Specialty Court standards. And what some of the benefits of this is OJD and Oregon Treatment Court programs will be providing a roadmap for optimal operations. CC will be providing tools and methodologies to monitor and evaluate program adherence to best practice model and outcomes, and most importantly, taxpayers and community members through cost-effective program that improves, or sorry, excuse me, taxpayers and community members will see through cost-effective program that improves community health and public safety. And on the slide here, it kind of has a ladder of some of the improvements and what we can now see from this program from OJD. I know that was very quick, so I'll just stop here for a second to see if the commissioners have any questions on this request. And I believe we do have members from OJD here in the meeting to answer any kind of technical questions from the request.
All right. Any questions or comments about updating treatment court standards? I've got a question about the deadline. I probably should know this, but we're regularly allocating funds from prior fiscal year awards with JAG grants. And is the 2026 deadline, is that state imposed, or is that when we need to have those dollars spent because of a federal deadline?
Chair Solomon, thank you for that question. Yes, this is the project period timeline for the federal grant as a whole. Right now, it is slated to end September 30th, 2026. However, we have not requested any extensions for this grant, so it is a possibility to receive a year extension. But with federal grants, it's always best case to just, if there's no extension already approved by the feds, we want to stick to what's already allowable. So for in this case, yes, we do have the possibility to extend to September 30, 2027, but as of right now, the grant is slated to end September 30, 2026, and that's the deadline we'd want to kind of adhere to until there's an extension.
Okay, so that's a relatively short timeline. I guess I just want to make sure that staff are comfortable in their ability to meet that deadline.
Yes, I think we've worked with OJD to identify, and I think they are aware of the short timeline, and I think we've come with discussion that they are prepared to meet this deadline. And I also don't want to speak on OJD's behalf, so if there's any other comments, I'll give OJD a chance to speak.
Right. Any additional comments from commissioners? All right. Do we have motion language?
Yes.
All right. Is there someone willing to make a motion to approve an award not to exceed $665,000 to OJD from fiscal year 23 burn JAG funds for proposed projects related to updating the Oregon Specialty Treatment Court standards?
This is Commissioner Norton. So moved.
This is Freeman. I'll second it.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Norton, seconded by Commissioner Freeman. Roll call, please, Jenny.
Commissioner Beach,
Yes.
Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner McPherson,
Yes.
Commissioner Norton,
Yes.
Commissioner Perosa,
Yes.
Chair Solomon,
Yes.
Commissioner Herndon,
Abstain?
and Commissioner Lehman.
Abstain?
All right. And Gerardo, I think you're up again to talk about the 2023 or the 2024 JAG grant solicitation.
Yes, give me 1 second to pull that slide up now, please. Is it showing?
Yes.
Okay. Well, hello again, everyone. Thank you again, Chair Solomon and members of the commission. My name is Gerardo Avila-Sloan. I am the Budget and Finance Manager here at CGC and also Supervisor of Federal Grants. And today I have some exciting news to announce the first solicitation for our JAG program. First off, I want to start off with just some information on the grant itself. Here is the actual budget breakdown for the FY24 JAG grant to CJC. So you see here we have roughly around $209,000 for administrative costs to CJC. From there, we have $389,000 in specialty court awards, which this is more so to 4 areas in specialty courts. And then we have what will be part of this solicitation is $1.5 million for the Oregon Innovation and Intervention funds. So in total for subawards, we have available $1.8 million, $1.88 million for the total award for the FY24 JAG to CJC was roughly a little under $2.1 million. More specific.
Before you move forward, can you go back to that slide? So can you say a little bit about the specialty court subawards?
Yes. So historically for our JAG awards, we have applied for specialty court or treatment courts in the past, which we've used our JAG funds for. But since treatment courts have a little bit funded more regularly, we have not needed to use federal funds to support treatment courts. So we've dedicated a little bit more funds now to this new Oregon Innovative and Intervention Fund Award.
So does that $389,000 augment the treatment court solicitations? Or how is that funding allocated?
That is a good question, Chair Solomon. I think right now for this $389 million, it would be Director Keck, would you be able to assist me in this question?
You can get back to me on it if you don't have the question, the answer right now.
Chair Solomon, members of the commission, it's a great question. JAG at the application stage asks us to kind of declare, right, where we're going to use dollars at a kind of initial introductory stage. Back in 2023, I want to say, when we made this application, we had carved out a certain amount for specialty courts or treatment courts to be defined. And so we still are at that stage as this. The set aside still exists in the application. So we're moving forward with the innovation portion right now to determine then how to use that small amount of subawards in the treatment court space.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So just a little bit more information on what the Oregon Innovative and Intervention Fund is, which acronyms are fun thing here at CGC. So we just call it the OIAF. The goals for this one is to improve Oregon's public safety system in innovative ways, direct responses to current public safety crises, and support innovative projects that have a strong potential to positively impact public safety and benefit the entire state through measurable outcomes or potential reproducibility after a pilot period. So how the funding breaks down for this solicitation, as you saw, the total award for subaward allocation for the FY24 grant was close to 1.9 million. From there, a total for OIAF allocation is 1.5 million. And then we also have some requirements for the federal grant that we need to pass through funds to local governments. And then there's also a requirement within that to pass a certain amount to local governments that receive less than 10,000 allocation. And that less than 10,000 allocation is based off a formula provided by BJA that looks at a portion of states or local governments that provide information for a 3-year violent crime average. And I just want to also just make it clear that the 1.5 million is available for the entire solicitation. It's just we have a requirement to pass 984,000 to local governments, and within that, we need to pass 308,000 to jurisdictions that did not quite reach that threshold of more than 10,000.
Are there that many jurisdictions that would meet that less than 10,000? I guess we're not just talking about counties, we're talking about individual police departments or...
Yes, we're talking about, yes, counties, cities, and police departments are in that list. And the list is quite large for their state. And I can also send you a list of that, Chair Solomon, if you're interested.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. Thank you.
So for the Brent JAG 24 funding priorities, Oregon CCHC had earlier this year completed the 2025 through 2029 strategic plan. In there, we addressed substance use disorders and mental health needs for justice-involved individuals. It improved criminal justice decision-making to emphasize data-informed decisions and evidence-informed practices. As well as some of the other funding priorities, JAG has different areas of program areas that will also be available for funding for this grant. So law enforcement, prosecution in courts, prevention, education, corrections, community corrections, drug treatment, planning, evaluation, and technology improvement. So the solicitor won't be just limited to what we have set out in our strategic plan, but we'll prioritize some of those requests. For eligible applicants, it's open to local law enforcement agencies, state law enforcement agencies, local government agencies, state, nonprofit, community organizations, and institutions of higher education. In this solicitation, we also set up some parameters where we'll have a minimum of $150,000 request. The estimated grant period that we'll have for recipients is roughly right now estimated between July 1st, 2026 to September 30th, 2027, where that September 30th, 2027 is that project period end date for the whole entire federal grant, which we have to adhere to. There's a possibility for a 1-year extension to complete project activities. Some of the permitted uses are for personnel, salaries, travel, training, equipment, contractor uses, supplies, and administrative costs and indirect costs. And some examples of unallowables items that we have on here are physical facility improvements, firearms and technical equipment, entertainment, food and drink, and other non-travel per diem items. In the solicitation, we have a large list of unallowable activities and allowable activities itself. And then some of the application criteria we have is we'll be addressing the CGC JAG priorities and BJA JAG and JAG activities, program design and implementation, organizational capability competencies, plan for collecting required data, budget and detailed budget narrative, as well as local government variable pass-through rate and the less than 10,000 allocation requirements, where we'll want to try to kind of meet those requirements of the 989,000 for the local units of government, as well as try to meet that 309,000 for the less than 10,000 pass-through as it's a requirement for the JAG grant. And then target areas of identification of counties and cities benefited, and addressing CGC JAG priorities will be given preference. And lastly, I have our estimated timeline for this solicitation. So we are planning to release our solicitation December 1st, have applications submitted to us by the deadline of February 6th, and then give us the rest of February to review applications provided to us, and then try to get in front of the commission on or around March commission meeting. And then we'll submit for BJA for final approval for these awards between April and May. And then June, we will try to submit intensive awards, and then as well as finalize grant agreements. So now I'll pause here for any questions from the commission.
Well, I will just share that I'm personally very excited about this grant. I think it's a great opportunity for jurisdictions around the state that have innovative ideas to receive funding in a competitive process. Historically, these funds have been allocated as folks have just come to the commission and asked for funding. So I think this is a great opportunity, and I'm thrilled that we are putting this solicitation out. Do you need motion language now, Corrado?
No,
Or you're just updating us on the process? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, great. All right, before we wrap up, any final comments or questions from commissioners? All right. Thank you, Gerardo. All right, Director Keck, we get agency updates to take us home.
Okay, good afternoon, Chair Salzman, members of the commission, Ryan Keck for the record. Still privileged to serve as your interim director. And I've got an update in kind of two ways for you today. I'm going to start with the less fun, and then we'll move to the rest. Let me get my slides fired up here. Sure are taking a while today.
All right, you're up.
All right. So, as you all are probably very aware, we were asked, like all state agencies in the last month or so, to prepare a budget reduction strategy or options from the Legislative Fiscal Office. Every agency was asked to prepare a plan that went to as far as 5% of their existing budget, provided then in two intervals at 2.5% and then 2.5%. It's important to point out, this is not a directive to implement any changes. It's just an opportunity for the agency to inform how the legislature or the governor's office reviews and considers the impacts of any budget decisions they may make moving forward. CJC's budget is really kind of simplified, or best put simply as funding our agency's operation or passing through grants to local services. You can see on the pie chart just how much is in each of those buckets. Roughly 5% of our total budget is agency operations. The rest are those grants. The exercise itself.
How do you define program support?
Yeah, so this is specifically kind of breaking down in our budget as to personnel and services, supplies and services, or special payments. So program support are those supplies and services spaces in the budget. This is where we fund some of our, a lot of the research work we do, some of the other enhancements and or data collection projects.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. And so the breakdown you can see at the bottom is what 5% looks like to our budget. We have 3 streams of funds primarily that are that were applicable to this exercise: general funds, other funds, which are predominantly just a duplication as it relates to transferring general funds to other funds, other fund accounts for grant making purposes, and then a lottery fund portion. So the exercise that we put together as we prepared, I've lost my slide function. There we go. We ultimately triaged this exercise into 3 spaces of impact. And it's no way to say that there is no impact. It's just to say that there are different degrees of impact. And we really prioritize the impact to local services after looking at our agency operations, which, as you can tell by the previous slide, there's not a whole lot to dig into. But we did identify in our exercise that in the space of minimal or less impact are some agency supplies and services. If reduced, those would change or reduce our ability to do enhancements to the STOP data collection project. We would continue to operate that program, continue to report on the data, but we would not do any enhancements, say, to the platform in which law enforcement officers use to collect the information. Also included in this bucket would be funds that we use to support the CJC Summit. And while we just had a successful reinvigoration of that program, if you will, or that event, this unfortunately lives in this bucket should we have to make these types of reductions. In the moderate impact space, we looked at where we could utilize vacancy savings to fill the gap. We found 3 positions that are currently in need of recruitment that we could delay by 6 months. They're not positions we could give up, but they're positions that we could delay the work slightly until filled. I'm sorry, I'm blind, so make sure. Any questions at this point? Okay. So then we get into the harder part of the exercise, which is looking at those grant funds that are dedicated for local services. Our triaging process identified first funds that have not yet been allocated. There are a couple of different ways in which this looks. There is an innovative grant, not to be confused with the innovation funds we just talked about out of the JAG fund, but there are some state funds we were provided to establish a program by the legislature in 2023, I want to say, or established in 21, continued in 2023, that we have yet to be able to get off of the ground as other larger grant programs have been developed and created by the CJC. So those monies are yet to be allocated and could be subject to a reduction exercise. You also have the funds that were kind of already gone through at least first stage of the process. You just heard the JMOOD program, and there's roughly $3 million that were not allocated through the first exercise and application formula that could be looked at for a reduction to our budget without having a direct effect on local services throughout the state. And then we have the Impacts Grant Program, which has yet to be released. We're getting ready to and have a timeline to do so, but if needed, we did have to include in our exercise that a portion of that funding could be held back or reduced from our budget. At that point, and that's roughly about 4% in the totality of the budget, we have no other option but to turn to the awards that have already been made by you all. And so what we looked at and calculated was the most equitable way to do so, which is identifying a 1.2% reduction to any of those awarded grants listed here on the screen.
Ryan, can
sir.
you just say how that would work once an award has been made, us taking money back?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a couple of ways that we may go about that, and a lot of it depends on timing. If at the time in which that is determined to be done, it depends on the expediency in which we're asked to do so. If we needed to make immediate returns, then we would have to go through a process to amend contracts with the grantees and probably adjust a later expected disbursement. If it were much later in the game, that might look different, but would probably more rely on what funding was underspent or not yet spent at that point in time.
Thanks.
That answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And so closing out on this piece, just again, reminder, it's not a directive to do anything just yet, just options being presented, but no decisions. What's next for us is in the meantime, we'll continue to minimize our discretionary spending as directed. The governor back in September asked all state agencies to basically avoid out-of-state travel, delay where they could, vacancy savings, which I already said is part of our plan here, and then other types of discretionary funding around training, supplies, and things of that nature. The legislature itself, of course, will wait for the next revenue forecast scheduled for February 4th, which falls right at the beginning of their next short session, where we anticipate this discussion, of course, will be taken up in much larger detail with determinations to be made. We understand that after our presentation last week to the Public Safety Subcommittee, that those chairs and committee will be discussing their thoughts on the state agencies that fall within their portfolio. Of course, those recommendations then go to the full Ways and Means for discussion and decision-making during that short session. So that's what I have on this end. And then I have hopefully more positive updates.
Great. Well, let's pause here and see if folks have any questions. All right, let's move us to the more positive points in your presentation.
I'll lead by saying mission accomplished. For those of you that were around back in July, I gave you this exact same slide with a couple of variations on the work that you had in front of you over the 6 months of this first 6 months of this biennium. Let's look at it that way. So as we're looking at the end of 2025, I just wanted to note all of the work that has been done and accomplished by you all and by staff, and to give you a little bit of taste of what's to come. So next month, we still have one more big grant decision-making process to discuss. That'll be those phase 2 awards based on the formula you approved in October. And then as we get into the new year, we still have decisions to be made about the Restorative Justice Grant Program, the JAG award that you just heard about from Gerardo, and then a couple other areas of change or activity that you all typically participate in after grant season. The sentencing guidelines grid always needs some review and some updating based on new crimes or modified crimes, so we'll be taking that up. House Bill 3069 created the consolidated grant programs for us in 2 spaces with a lot of requirements and expectations. So there'll be a lot of discussion around the development of that. And of course, grant adjustment requests, which we anticipate may see an uptick over the next biennium, given the economic climate that we're currently in. And those will, of course, come before you when they are a substantive change to a program that requires your input. And lastly, I just want to say thank you both to all of you and to our staff, because that's a lot of work that got conducted and is underway at this point in time. We're transitioning to a new phase, and we, the agency, can't do it without each part of the whole, that being the commissioners and the staff and discussions like we had today. So I just wanted to extend my appreciation given the spirit of the week that we are all in.
Agreed, and I wholeheartedly concur. It's been a lot of work the past few meetings. A lot of gratitude to staff for helping us navigate all of these complex grants, and to the commission for all your hard work. And you have anything else for us, Ryan?
That is it.
All right, Commissioner Freeman, I thought I saw your hand come up for quickly. No? Yes?
Just wanted to thank you, Mr. Chair, and I wanted to thank Director Keck for this time working on the marijuana market enforcement grant, and the staff, Rima, and everybody. I know we normally don't get that deep into the woods on stuff, and I was really appreciative of the fact that everybody was good to talk to about it, and I think we ultimately made a good decision. If staff could email us those 2 scenarios, we chose the second scenario. I'd like to just to have it in my file so I understand what we did. So sure appreciate all the great work.
We'll certainly follow up.
All right. Well, I hope you all have a great holiday and enjoy, hopefully, time off. And we'll see you at the December meeting. Take care.